Good evening, everyone. Welcome to this evening's Samhain. Samhain, the beautiful, and very exciting opportunity today to look at some shadow work this evening. And if you are with me in the Google call, be aware that this call is being recorded. So you may appear on screen if you make any noises. For those of you elsewhere watching on different platforms, welcome. I'm really excited to have you here this evening on Halloween when we will be looking at doing some shadow work. And if you haven't kind of discovered what shadow work is just yet, let me tell you a little bit about what shadow work is. And we will also consider going forward how we can use this, what the benefit of shadow work is, and what we can alchemize with it. So if you haven't met me already, my name's Laura. I run a company called Empress Taroista, also known as Law of Attraction, and I work in trauma recovery, and I'm a very powerful witch, as are you, and you can be too. And if you would like to practice forms of magic that leave you feeling more empowered, I use magic and psychology as well as various other forms of psychology and magic and spirituality to bring in happiness and peace into people's lives. So this evening we're going to be having a very good look at what shadow work is and how we can shadow work to help ourselves. And I'm going to explain to you first of all what the shadow actually is. Now, the shadow is a term that comes from Carl Jung, and the idea is that when we repress part of ourselves, we create what is known as the shadow. And the shadow can be something that we reject from us. So for instance, if you had a parent who was particularly rageful and this scared you when you were a child, you may have created some form of a shadow that rejected that anger. It kind of created this inner demon for you that made you repress your anger. Now, when we repress something in our lives, what actually happens is it comes out in subconscious manners, and this leaves us at the will and whim of this shadow self that often comes out in some way unexpected. I think a good way to think about this is, have you ever been in a in a car queue and somebody cuts you up and suddenly there's this rage and anger and something that comes out of you that you didn't realize that you had within you? You may have found that there's a part of yourself that comes out when you least expect it, and this is something that we would call the shadow self. Now, the shadow is something that was created to protect us in some way, like within that example of, being angry and being fearful when somebody cuts us up in a car queue. This shadow tends to come out in some way to protect us. The problem with an unconscious part of yourself being in control at points is that it's an unconscious part of you. The reason why we call it the shadow is because it is there behind you, doing something that you are not hugely aware of. Just like your shadow, if you were to cast a light upon someone and you'd see the shadow behind them, they're not so conscious of what's happening with the shadow. The shadow is doing things behind them. And when we become triggered, when we become upset or angry or in an emotional state, our shadow selves can step in and start to run our lives for us. And this can be a very detrimental thing. Now, the shadow is often born through some form of upset, or through sadness, or through some form of trauma, or, as I said previously, some form of repression, where we reject parts of ourselves. And actually, all parts of you as a human being, whether they be those uncomfortable emotions that we have, like rage or sorrow or fear, or whether they be some of the more darker natured sides of us that we'll obviously be celebrating with Samhain or Halloween, depending on where you come from. And we tend to reject these things a little bit because they're not so comfortable. And I find that, we as women, You know, the women that are on the call this evening, and obviously I'm a woman, we tend to have things like rage. We tend to repress our rage because anger isn't a nice emotion for women. We may repress our dominance because we get called bossy. We may repress some of those things that are not seen as feminine. And this, whether, you know, a lot of this is unconscious programming from society and culture that really we're not aware of. And this again falls back in line with that idea of the shadow, of something going on behind the scenes, of part of your brain doing something for you without you being conscious of it, without you being aware of it. Now, if you've not done shadow work before, I will give a slight warning. And this isn't to scare you. This is just as a slight warning. Shadow work can be quite a lot. Sometimes it can bring up feelings, it can ask uncomfortable questions, it can make us question ourselves and why we do things. And when we start to dive deep into those murky underwaters of the subconscious, we can sometimes bring up things into our consciousness that maybe we weren't aware of. If you're somebody who has had trauma in your childhood, or you've had traumatic relationships, or you have relationships with your parents that maybe aren't so good, you may find that some of this is a little bit more challenging for you than it is for some others. But at the same time, you are also a survivor, so you may find this like absolutely perfect and fine. It would be irresponsible of me to not say that sometimes shadow work can bring up tough stuff. If you find at any point during this beautiful ritual for alchemy of the shadow on this Samhain celebration, and it starts to feel a little bit too much for you, then take a deep breath, step away from the question, and come back to it when you feel better. The other thing I would like to also suggest and say for you is, if you are doing this shadow work with me live this evening, then please make sure that after this shadow workshop, you have something fun to do. You have something enjoyable to do, whether it's going and having a nice cup of tea, or having a cuddle with your pet or your child or your spouse, or, you know, a pillow if you have no one, whatever it may be, a hot bath, something that's soothing, okay? A little meditation, something that brings joy, whatever that is for you. You know, it could be watching funny videos online. It could be a hot bath. It could be a hot cup of tea. It could be, you know, watching your favorite film. Whatever it is, do it. Okay. Find something immediately after this workshop that lifts your energy back up again. And this will help you to kind of alchemize some of the stuff that we're doing this evening. So, my name is Laura. I have been a spiritual mentor and a trauma coach for 5 years or so. I'm a qualified teacher, lecturer prior to this, and I'm a specialist in neurodiversity in education. That's that stuff. I've also been a witch, and I've been a witch since I was 15. And I've only just started telling people because my shadow was like, don't tell anyone, they'll think you're weird. But it's fine because it's Halloween today, so let's do this. Now, let's talk a little bit about Samhain. So Samhain is a very beautiful and significant time of year, and it is today. Once the sun goes down, we now have the joy of a thinned veil. And Samhain is a profound time that is associated with Halloween. It's associated with the veil between the living and the spirit form being at its thinnest. And this allows connection with other people, okay, like yourselves, like me, that maybe are partaking in more, you know, exciting realms other than the realm of the 3D. And it also means that we can be in contact with some of those deeper subconscious parts of ourselves if you're not one for the magical. And if you are one for the magical, then it certainly allows us to be in contact with those that are no longer part of the living realm. And it serves as an opportunity for some profound inner work. And it's particularly good for exploration of the shadow, because Halloween, Samhain, is very much related to those ghostly ghouls and witches and demons and all of the things that a lot of people can sometimes find rooted in fear. And fear, of course, is one of those things that we repress and reject within ourselves. And so now is an exciting time on Samhain, when the veil is thin, when the demons and the ghouls are out. Now's a perfect time to do shadow work and to challenge ourselves, to explore our inner self, to explore and confront some of your fears, to acknowledge the cyclical nature of ourselves as human beings, as well as of the seasons and of the years, and to have time to reflect, to honor the past, and to also honor not only ourselves as beings that have maybe experienced trauma or have been through difficulties in our lives and embrace the darkness at points, but it also allows us to embody that rebirth going forward as we move through the winter months, moving into the beauty of the new year. Now, Samhain is a beautiful time. It's the witch's Christmas, in effect. Let's have a think now about what shadow work is. Okay, so shadow work is a practice that involves reflecting upon and confronting some of your inner fears. It may be unresolved emotions, it could be doubts, it could be personal fears about you, yourself, what you're able to achieve. Whatever it is, shadow work offers you an opportunity to, instead of hiding from those parts of yourself, it offers an opportunity for you to explore those parts of yourself. And as with anything, when you cast a light upon a shadow, it does in fact disappear. And this is very much like what it means to alchemize, to transmute, to change, to transform the shadow, those emotions that you run from themselves. Now, using time to acknowledge the difficult things that you have maybe been running from allows for great transformation in your life. And it's a perfect time and a perfect tool for personal growth and self-empowerment. So how do we do shadow work? What is it? What do we do? How does this even alchemize anything? Well, something I've noticed with the hundreds of people that I've worked with is that generally they're very bloody tired because they are running from the pain that they have experienced. You can see this with maladaptive coping mechanisms such as addictions. You don't want to think about the trauma that happened to you in your childhood, so you get drunk, you're running from the pain, you're numbing things through a maladaptive coping mechanism of maybe alcoholism, for instance. And using that coping mechanism, you then create a new cycle. And the new cycle is that you must continue to drink to run from the thing that you're running from. And any time that you're not drunk, you have to confront the thing you don't want to confront. And it creates two cycles, two problems, the one thing that you're running from, and then this new thing that you have to keep up to keep running from the thing you're running from. How very exhausting, how very tiring. And so many people do this. They spend their lives running from things. And so how about we do something rather transformational where we just turn around and we look at the thing that we need to confront and we confront it together. And that's what we're going to do this evening. And if this scares the shit out of you, take a deep breath and remember that you survived the trauma. You can certainly survive looking at the trauma through the lens of being safe now in the present moment. Okay? So let's start. Let's have a little think. Samhain is a beautiful time for personal transformation. And we will come in with something a little easier than maybe looking at some of the most profound trauma you've ever been through in your life. But let's start by reflecting and exploring some of those uncomfortable human emotions that we tend to run from. So hopefully, my darlings, you have brought a pen and some paper. And I will be doing this shadow work with you as we go along, because as much as I am a leader, I also walk my own talk. I love doing these things with you because they bring up beautiful and interesting things no matter how many times you do shadow work. No matter how many times you ask the same question of yourself, you will bring up something new. You do not need somebody to guide you through shadow work, but shadow work can bring up some very uncomfortable emotions. So make sure that, again, that you do have somebody there to support you afterwards. And doing any work with any mentor that has already walked the path that you're about to walk will save you a lot of pain and suffering, because they already know the way. So our very first question, my darlings, is this. And the way that we do shadow work is I shall pose you a question. You may write that question down if you like as a continuous prompt throughout the exploration. And by writing it down, I just want you to allow whatever is coming out of your mind to pour onto the page. It's almost an active form of journaling, okay? So the question may be, why am I unhappy? Okay. And immediately you might think, well, I'm not unhappy, but just stop for a second. I just want you to think, why am I unhappy? And you want to pour upon that. Why could you possibly be unhappy in this moment? And do not question, do not judge, do not overthink your answers. Just write what is coming up for you in the moment. There's a beautiful exploration that comes back at looking at your answers that leads you into understanding your subconscious and yourself more as a human being. So do not edit yourself as you are doing shadow work, because you will miss an opportunity to do something vital when you come back to it. Okay. So allow it to pour, no self-judgment. Nobody else is reading this. You can set fire to your journal afterwards if you're so very ashamed. Okay. But please allow it to be pouring out unedited. Our very first question for this evening, for the shadow work, is what fears or insecurities consistently hold me back from pursuing my goals or living authentically? I'll repeat that. What fears or insecurities consistently hold me back from pursuing my goals or living authentically? What fears are holding you back in the short? Go. I'll be quiet whilst you're doing it. Okay, that may be the very first time that you have asked yourself some of these interesting questions. And one of the things about the conscious mind is that once you start asking it questions, it tends to start giving you answers. Um, when you put your shadow work down, you may find that things crop up, and this is that beautiful process of shining the light on something that is normally hidden in the dark. I would allow yourself to come back to questions at points if you aren't given enough time this evening. We have a few to get through, and I want to make the most of the time with you. And I would always recommend to come back to your journal and relook at the answers, relook at the questions, and see if something else comes up as we go through. Something that's interesting about shadow work is that, and you may have noticed this already by taking a little look at some of the answers that were coming up for that first question, is actually how very often the answers that we have are controversial. They may be contradicting, that you may say one thing and then the next minute you may say something else. The first two answers that I had here, what insecurities that may hold me back from my goals, is the first one is failing, that I may fail. That's the first thing that I fear. The second thing that I've written down is succeeding, that I may succeed, that's just as scary as failing is. And you'll begin to notice that sometimes the things that you write don't make conscious sense. When we read them out loud, it doesn't make sense to our conscious mind. And this is because these are things that have rooted deeply within the subconscious and within parts of ourselves that we've rejected as we go forward. And once you start to unpick this stuff, you may start to notice that you have patterns that run through your answers. You may start to notice that they may relate to some form of trauma, or the way that your mother raised you, or things that your father said to you when you were a child. You'll begin to notice, like, that where does that come from? Why do I feel that? What is it that, what is it about failing that worries me? What is it about success that worries me there? And you can start to delve a little deeper into your answers with a little more shadow work as you go on with this beautiful journey of trying to alchemize those subconscious parts of yourself and create them into something where you're self-aware of it, and then therefore able to be more in control of it. Okay? So question number 2, my darlings, if we are ready to go back in, are there any current recurring patterns or behaviors in my life that I avoid addressing? Okay. Are there recurring patterns or behaviors in my life that I avoid addressing? Are there things that you do in your life that you refuse to acknowledge or look upon? Have a think. I'll be quiet again whilst we do it. Okay, and then a part two to that question. So we're going to look at the answers that we just put down for recurring patterns, behaviors that you may not be addressing in your life. And I want you to consider what they may reveal about your deeper emotions or beliefs about yourself. So, for instance, you may have put down self-sabotage as something that you're not addressing. And considering what self-sabotage is, it's probably rooted somewhere in a lack of self-belief, a fear of success, a fear of failing. Think about what that may mean. Think about what that may feel like to you, that it may reveal about your deeper emotions or beliefs about yourself. And I just go through point by the things that you've already listed for that second question. Okay, so a part 2B, as it were, for that one. Take a little look at what you've already written and think what it may mean to you. Okay, question number 3. What parts of myself do I repress and why? This could be an emotion, it could be a behavior, it could be the way of doing things. It could be something that you actively refuse to get involved with because of some form of ideas or moralism or whatever it is. We're not going to judge too heavily about, whatever it is. We're just going to think about those parts of ourselves that we repress and why we repress them. So, for instance, you may have had a very angry parent who was very scary when they were angry. And so whenever you start to feel anger or rage, you just swallow it down, you repress it because it reminds you of your dad or your mum. Okay. So what parts of myself do I repress? Well, anger, rage, feeling vitriolic, shouting, that it could be those kind of things. Why do I repress it? I repress it because it reminds me of my angry parent, or whatever your answer would be to those questions. Okay. So what is it? What parts of myself do I repress and why? What parts of myself do I repress and why? Okay, next question. How has my trauma, and this is whatever trauma first comes to mind for you, okay, it could be something in childhood or adulthood, whatever you feel is the most, you know, traumatic for you. How has my trauma changed the way I view myself? And you probably would have had a bit of insight based on the previous questions answered. Okay. So, how has my trauma changed the way I view myself? Okay, so shadow work. If this is the first time that you've done shadow work, you may be thinking, how the hell has this helped? How does this help? And you may be feeling a little worse than you were when you started on a call. And that is normal. And again, when you shine light upon something, it begins to disappear. The more that you do shadow work, the more that you can understand who you are. You can understand the reasons that you do things. When we understand the subconscious reasons that we do things, it means that we can have more power over what it is that we do. Instead of falling into subconscious programming as a result of unthought thoughts, things that are happening behind the scenes that you're not aware of, that shadow, it means that we can start to implement things that we want to implement. It could be that we change the way that we think about ourselves. It could be that we recognize that we have some detrimental thought patterns or beliefs as a result of behaviors or shadows or trauma that we've experienced in our life. When we begin to challenge these things and bring these things into the light, it means that we actually can change them. And it means that we can become a little bit more conscious as a human being, and we can start to implement things that create change and manifest happiness and peace and joy in our lives. So you may notice that you have a recurring pattern that is rooted somewhere in a fear of being alone, for instance. You may find that you go into relationships too quickly, that you leave relationships too quickly because you have a fear of being trapped. Whatever it is, you may notice that there are behaviors, that there is a root with a lot of these things that all reside from the same area. It could be that you don't trust yourself, or that you fear vulnerability, that you fear intimacy. It could be that you are avoiding becoming like your mother, avoiding becoming like your father, avoiding becoming like the perpetrator of your trauma. All of these things live in the subconscious, and they inform and change our behavior. When you're not aware of something, it's doing it behind the scenes. And so you have zero control over it. The beauty of shadow work is that we are looking deeply into that we never look at. And it means that we can begin to change some of those behaviors. It begins to unpack some of the things that are hidden within ourselves. Now, shadow work can sometimes bring up stuff, as I said before. So please make sure that you take an opportunity this evening to step aside from your journal and to do something beautiful. If you've enjoyed this work, and you have enjoyed working with me this evening, I would like to offer you a couple of things. The very first one is I have a free goddess group on Facebook, which is where you can access events like this, that you can keep in contact with me, and you can find out what I'm getting up to in the general scheme of things. And I'd love to invite you to that. So wherever you have found this event, whether you are joining me from TikTok or Facebook or wherever you found me, please do send me a message or a DM, or you can email me lawofattraction@gmail.com, and that is LAU of attraction ATTRACTION@gmail.com. Send me an email and I can send you details of anything that you'd be interested in regards to myself and the work that I do. But I'd love to invite you to the free goddess group, because that is a place where you can keep up to date with all the community events and the fun stuff that I'm doing for free. Something else I would like to talk to you a little bit about for a moment is a course that I am launching. This is 5 years. This is the culmination of 5 years of coaching one-to-one with clients. And it's an opportunity for us to cocoon. It's called cocooning, and it's called Cocoon, and it's an opportunity for you to do some deep work in regards to your trauma, your life. Now, Cocoon is for people who are feeling broken, who are feeling that they're unable to make changes in their lives. So if you are stuck on some form of a loop of procrastination or fearing change, or you feel unable to change unhelpful coping mechanisms, this is a course that will help you to turn your life around 180 degrees and make some true changes in your life. Even if you tried them before, even if you've done therapy, even if you've read all the self-help books, this is something that really, really does work. And it's taken me from being somebody who had drug addiction issues, who had eating disorders, who had very severe trauma responses from my childhood, to being somebody who's very happy and level-headed and enjoying life now. So it's everything that I've done myself to get myself to where I am today, and it's all the stuff that I love doing with my clients. And this is a group program, so it's a hell of a lot less expensive than working one-to-one with me. So this is something I'm launching, and the fact that you're here tonight, I'd love to offer you 20% off if that's something that you're interested in. But before we finish up the call, what I would really love to do is to do a little bit of meditation before we finish up, so we can raise our energy back up a little bit and get ourselves back onto some joyful energy before we finish up to go forward for the rest of our evening for Halloween. So if you haven't done meditation before, please do not panic, because it's nothing much more than listening to somebody talk at this moment and taking some deep breaths. So I'd like you to take a moment to get comfortable however you are. Okay, you're happy to do this. You can do this sitting, you can do it lying down, do whatever makes you feel comfortable. Okay, but I'd like you to take a moment just to slow down a little bit and to close your eyes. And I'd like you to take some deep breaths. I'd like you to breathe in and out. And in and out. And in and out. Notice how calming and soothing the breath can be as you allow that to return back to its normal pace. And keeping your eyes closed, I would like you to imagine yourself now standing at the top of 5 stairs. I'm going to lead you down those stairs as I count from 5 to 1 in a moment. And as we move down those stairs, with each step, you're going to begin to feel more relaxed and calmer. And we're going to take a nice deep breath in once more. And out. And as I count down, we're going to step off that 5th step. You can see it in your mind's eye, your feet upon those steps. And we're going to step down from the 5th step to the 4th step. And with each step, as you step down, you're becoming calmer, more peaceful, more relaxed. We're going to step from that 4th to the 3rd step now. We're becoming more peaceful, more relaxed with each step, stepping from the 3rd to the 2nd, becoming more calm and more relaxed, more peaceful, allowing that breath to soothe us with every breath in. We're becoming more calm. With every breath out, we're becoming more relaxed. And we're going from that 2nd step down to that 1st step, and there we are, feeling very relaxed with our feet upon the ground. And I'd like you to look down in the imagination of these steps that you've stepped down on. You're standing now on beautiful green grass. And this beautiful green grass is very soft, whether you're wearing shoes in your imagination or barefoot, it does not matter. If you're barefoot, you can walk upon this grass quite safely with no fear or no concerns of anything happening to your body. You are very safe. And with every breath that you take in, you're becoming more peaceful and more calm and more relaxed. And as you walk forward, I'd like you to imagine yourself stepping forward to a mirror. This is a very large mirror. It's a mirror that's large enough for you to see the whole of yourself just standing there. There's nothing else, just grass as far as the eye can see, and this one mirror that's in front of you. And I'd like you to imagine yourself looking at yourself in that mirror in your mind's eye. And this mirror is a magical mirror. This mirror offers you an opportunity to see yourself in the future. And at this moment, you're looking there and you're seeing yourself in this present moment. You're seeing who you are in this present moment as you've come down into the imagination of yourself. As you are, as tall as you are, as as young as you are, as old as you are, as wide as you are, just as you are as this moment as you turned up to this workshop. That's exactly what you can see in front of you. And now I'd like you to imagine that this mirror is beginning to change. This mirror is beginning to transform. Your reflection that you can see of your present state now is beginning to change and transmogrify, to transmute, to change. And it is beginning to change those things about yourself that are caused by a lack of self-love, a lack of self-confidence, a lack of self-esteem, that are caused by some form of trauma, some form of holding yourself back, whatever it is, some form of self-repression. This mirror is going to begin to change that reflection as if you loved yourself, as if you were truly healed, as if you had let go of all the pain, all the suffering, all of the things that hold you back, that stop you from having and living the life that you want, stop you from achieving your goals, stop you from being the you that you want to be. And as you look into the mirror, you begin to see a you who is confident, a you who is smiling back widely, very happy, very self-confident, very, very pleased with themselves, because they have healed their trauma, because they have achieved their goals, because they have stepped into their perfect and most progressed self, as perfect, as wonderful as a human can be, perfectly imperfect. And this you is looking back, smiling, knowing that they have managed to achieve what they had set out to do, that they have attained their potential, that they are living very joyfully and very wonderfully in their future selves, healed of their trauma, healed of the pain, healed of the repression, in control of their shadow self, no longer letting themselves down. And I'd like you to take a moment to imagine now, looking at this wonderful you that stands in front of you, everything that you wish that you could be right now, whether that's, standing taller or a little slimmer or a little fitter or whatever it is that you can see in front of you. I'd like you to imagine as if you're putting your hands upon the glass, and as you move your hands forward to that mirror, your reflection places those hands up against your hands as you place them on the mirror. And it's as if you're standing hand to hand, touching yourself. And as you move forward, I want you to imagine as if you and this future self are beginning to merge, as if you are stepping through the mirror of your unconscious, literally merging with this other self, so that you are stepping forward into becoming the you that you wish you could be at this current moment in time. Because the future you knows that you in the past is very capable of attaining those things with a few little tweaks and changes. And as you and this future self, this ideal you, become one, I would like you to take a deep breath as you step through to the other side of the mirror world, into the other side of one's imagination, that which we feel is unattainable, but is actually very much within reach. And on the other side of the mirror, just as reflected, you can see the stairs that you originally came down. And I'd like you to take a deep breath as we begin to count back up from the depths of our subconscious, from the depths of our minds, our imaginations. We're going to begin to walk back up those steps, and with every step, we're going to become a little bit more self-aware. And we're going to put our feet there onto the first step. And we're feeling a little bit more aware of our bodies, back into the second step, up to the third. We're halfway there now. We're becoming more aware of the room that we left behind as we started this imagination, as we started this meditation, this hypnosis. And we're into the fourth step now and onto the fifth step now. And we're going to take a nice deep breath, and we're going to begin to wiggle our toes and our fingers. And we're going to become a bit more conscious of the bodies that we're in here rather than that of our imagination. And we're going to begin to open our eyes and view the room that we're back in again. And I'd love to thank you very much this evening, for spending time with me. As I said, my name's Laura, and I would love to spend some more time with you, either at one of my free events or within my free group, or if you are interested in working with me one-to-one or on any of my group coaching programs, please get in contact with me. I'd love to talk to you, and I offer a free call. So if you'd like to have a chat with me face-to-face, we can get that booked in, and I can let you know how I might be able to help you personally, and if my programs are actually going to help you. I don't work with people that I'm not able to help, because that's terrible for me and it's awful for them. So if you're not sure and you'd like to have a chat with me, feel free to get that booked in as well, and just contact me via lawaofattraction@gmail.com, or throughout whichever way you saw this group event. I love you very much. I'd like to wish you a very, very happy Halloween. Remember to take some time this evening to speak to the loved ones that you have that have passed, and any spirit guides, anybody else that you wish to be in commune with whilst the veil is thinned, and ask them to help you in attaining your dreams as well. I love you. You know where I am if you need me. I look forward to speaking to you all soon. Take care of yourselves. Good night. Goodbye. Happy Halloween.